Welcome to our exploration of African tribes and kingdoms that played significant roles in the history of slavery. The transatlantic slave trade, a dark chapter in human history, cast a long shadow over the African continent. While often portrayed solely as victims, it's crucial to acknowledge the complex historical reality. Some African states and societies actively participated in this trade. Today we delve into the stories of 5 powerful states and societies that engaged in the slave trade. These kingdoms, driven by a quest for power, wealth, and sometimes survival, left an indelible mark on the course of history. Their stories, often untold, offer a glimpse into a turbulent era marked by both ambition and exploitation. Join me as we journey through time, exploring the rise and fall of these kingdoms, their motivations for engaging in the slave trade, and the lasting impact their actions have had on the world. This is not to justify or condone their actions, but to understand the complexities of the past and learn from the mistakes of history. Deep within the heart of modern-day Ghana, a powerful kingdom rose to prominence, the Ashanti Empire. Renowned for their military prowess and sophisticated social structure, the Ashanti were also masters of trade and a key player in the transatlantic slave trade. The Ashanti Empire, at its peak, controlled vast territories and commanded a formidable army. Their warriors, armed with muskets acquired through trade, conducted frequent raids on neighboring communities, capturing men, women, and children to fuel the insatiable demand for slaves. These captives, tragically, became commodities traded for valuable goods with European merchants. Gold, ivory, and other resources flowed into the Ashanti Empire, but at a terrible human cost. The slave trade, for the Ashanti, was a source of wealth, power, and influence. The Ashanti kings, shrewd and ambitious, used the profits from the slave trade to consolidate their power and expand their empire. They built lavish palaces, adorned themselves in gold, and commanded the respect and fear of their neighbors. However, the reliance on the slave trade had a corrosive effect on Ashanti society. Internal conflicts intensified as neighboring tribes, fearing Ashanti raids, armed themselves in self-defense. The very trade that brought the Ashanti wealth also sowed the seeds of instability. The Ashanti Empire's story is a complex one, a tapestry woven with threads of power, ambition, and tragedy. Their legacy serves as a reminder of the devastating impact of the slave trade, not only on the victims, but also on the societies that perpetuated it. On the coast of West Africa, in present-day Benin, the 𝒩𝒐𝒻 kingdom rose to become a dominant force in the transatlantic slave trade. Ruled by a powerful monarchy, the 𝒩𝒐𝒻 were renowned for their military prowess, particularly their elite female warrior units known as the 𝒂𝒑𝒑𝒏𝒚, often referred to as the 𝒩𝒑𝒻 Amazons. The 𝒩𝒑𝒻's involvement in the slave trade was deeply entrenched in their society. King 𝒑𝒐𝒏𝒚, a prominent ruler of 𝒩𝒑𝒻, openly defended the trade, believing it essential for their economic and political survival. He argued that it brought wealth and prestige to his kingdom, allowing him to maintain his authority and resist European encroachment. The 𝒩𝒑𝒻 conducted well-organized military campaigns against neighboring kingdoms and tribes, capturing prisoners of war who were then sold into slavery. These captives, often marched to the coast in chains, endured horrific conditions, their fate a stark reminder of the brutality of the trade. The 𝒩𝒑𝒻's reliance on the slave trade had profound consequences. Their society became increasingly militarized, focused on capturing and selling slaves to maintain their economic and political dominance. This dependence on human trafficking, however, made them vulnerable to the shifting tides of the global slave trade. As European nations began to abolish slavery in the 19th century, the demand for slaves declined, undermining the 𝒩𝒑𝒻's economic foundation. The kingdom, once a major player in the transatlantic slave trade, found itself increasingly isolated and weakened. The story of the 𝒩𝒑𝒻 kingdom is a stark reminder of the complexities of the slave trade. While it brought them wealth and power in the short term, it ultimately contributed to their decline, leaving a legacy of exploitation and suffering in its wake. In the heartland of what is now Nigeria, the Oyo Empire, a powerful Yoruba state, flourished for centuries. Known for their sophisticated political structure, artistic achievements, and economic prowess, the 𝒍𝒐 were also deeply involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The 𝒍𝒐 Empire's strategic location at the crossroads of trans-Saharan trade routes gave them access to vast networks of commerce. They traded in gold, ivory, and cola nuts, but it was the trade in human beings that brought them immense wealth and influence. The 𝒍𝒐's military might, based on a powerful cavalry and skilled infantry, allowed them to conduct extensive raids on neighboring communities. These raids, often brutal and devastating, resulted in the capture of countless men, women, and children who were then sold into slavery. European merchants, eager for a share of the profits, flocked to the 𝒍𝒐 Empire, exchanging manufactured goods, firearms, and other desirable items for enslaved Africans. This trade, while enriching the 𝒍𝒐 elite, fueled a vicious cycle of warfare and enslavement. The 𝒍𝒐 Empire's reliance on the slave trade had profound consequences for the region. It intensified conflicts between neighboring kingdoms and tribes as each sought to capture slaves for profit or to prevent themselves from being enslaved. The trade undermined traditional social structures and sowed the seeds of instability. The 𝒍𝒐 Empire's story, like that of the Ashanti and Dahomey, demonstrates the complex interplay of factors that drove the transatlantic slave trade. It highlights the devastating impact of the trade on African societies, fueling conflict, undermining social cohesion, and leaving a lasting legacy of trauma. In the heart of Central Africa, the Kingdom of Congo, a sophisticated and powerful state, initially resisted the encroaching slave trade. The Congo, with their well-developed political systems, vibrant culture, and established trade networks, viewed the trade in human beings with suspicion and disdain. However, the arrival of Portuguese traders in the late 15th century marked a turning point in the Congo's history. The Portuguese, eager for slaves to work their sugar plantations in Brazil, sought to exploit divisions within the Congo kingdom to their advantage. Internal conflicts and rivalries within the Congo, exacerbated by Portuguese interference, created opportunities for the slave trade to take root. Rival factions within the ruling elite, vying for power, began to capture and sell their enemies into slavery in exchange for Portuguese weapons and support. This internal struggle, fueled by the slave trade, weakened the Congo kingdom, making them vulnerable to Portuguese manipulation. The once powerful kingdom, fractured by internal strife and the corrosive influence of the slave trade, gradually succumbed to external pressures. The story of the Congo kingdom is a tragic illustration of how European powers exploited existing divisions within African societies to further their own economic interests. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of the slave trade, not only on individuals but also on the fabric of entire societies. In the highlands of Angola, a formidable warrior society known as the Imbangala emerged, striking fear into the hearts of their neighbors. The Imbangala, organized into highly disciplined military units, were renowned for their ferocity in battle and their ruthlessness in expanding their territory. Driven by a complex interplay of factors, including environmental pressures, political ambition, and economic opportunity, the Imbangala became deeply involved in the slave trade. They conducted devastating raids on neighboring communities, capturing men, women, and children to fuel the insatiable demand for slaves. The Imbangala's military prowess, based on their mastery of guerrilla warfare and their use of iron weapons, allowed them to dominate their rivals. They established a fearsome reputation, becoming both suppliers of slaves and mercenaries for hire in the complex web of conflict that characterized the region. The Portuguese, eager to secure a steady supply of slaves for their burgeoning colonies in Brazil, readily traded with the Imbangala. They exchanged firearms, gunpowder, and other manufactured goods for enslaved Africans, further enriching the Imbangala and fueling the cycle of violence. The Imbangala's involvement in the slave trade had a devastating impact on the region. Their raids depopulated vast areas, shattered communities, and instilled a climate of fear and instability. Their story serves as a stark reminder of the brutal consequences of the transatlantic slave trade. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. We've explored the stories of 5 African states and societies that played significant roles in the transatlantic slave trade: the Ashanti, Dahomey, Oyo, Congo, and Imbangala. Understanding the complexities of the past, even the darkest chapters, helps us appreciate the present and shape a better future. The legacy of the slave trade is a painful one, a reminder of the human capacity for both great evil and remarkable resilience. Let us learn from the mistakes of history, acknowledging the suffering inflicted by the slave trade, and working together to build a world where such atrocities are never repeated. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Africarized.